Hi, it's Liz, and I'm back this time with two Derp-Free no-sew sachets. We have a small paper envelope and a small, forgot to focus, lace scrap sachet. A friend of mine and I were talking about this recently. We had just been to a Ren fair and we both bought a couple bags of absolutely fabulous potpourri from Wellcat Herbs at wellcat.com. And we wanted to know, well, what do we do with these now? They're in little plastic baggies and they smell absolutely incredible. But what do we do with them? Do we stick them in a bowl? We don't want to spill them. We don't want to waste any of these things. So I told her I'm going to design a couple of no-sew easy sachets so you can just use a little bit at a time and you don't have to worry about wasting anything that you just bought. So, the first one we're going to do right now is the small paper envelope, little paper sachet. You see things like this in stores, in craft stores, definitely. And all it is just one square of paper folded into a tiny envelope, sealed with some glue, and I decided to put a sticker over it to be fancy. So I'm going to lower the laptop lid so you can see what I'm doing here a little more. Okay, and it's a little messier this time, pardon me. I have here a bunch of scrapbooking paper. Now, for the absolute newbie, you can find these at Michael's, AC Moore, Rag Shop even, and that's in the northeast of the country. I don't know what the popular craft stores are elsewhere. I have some that I've just got over the years, and you can see it's already partially used. This is all about using stuff that's on hand. So it has a nice sort of fall palette, a lot of oranges, browns, a little blue. I decided to work with that today. I'm going to be using this one for my demonstration here. So I'm going to move this aside and set out our paper. Pick the design you want, anything you want, go nuts. Just don't go too nuts because sometimes craft paper is expensive. So the next thing I did is I made a friend for anyone out there who's new to this, little Tommy template. All this is a template of paper to make a little envelope with. What I did was I didn't even measure it. I just took 8.5 by 11 piece of paper and folded it in half and did the little sailboat thing, where you fold paper into a triangle like this. And you cut along to make a square, like we all did in kindergarten. And I have a square. If you want to be more exacting, please feel free to go ahead and measure, but I wanted this to sort of be quick and dirty, very simple, so anyone can do it. So the template here, once I had my square, I folded it in half to make a triangle, and I creased it, unfolded it, and did that, and then I did that again to make another triangle. This makes a cross in the center of the circle. That's sort of a guideline for you. The first thing you do, and I'm going to have this facing you, the first thing you do is you make the bottom part of your envelope, this part, right here. So you take the bottom corner, fold it up to the center of the cross, and crease it. Then you fold over one flap, and another flap, and you will have something that looks remarkably like a tiny envelope, because it is. And you can go ahead and crease the top flap to get an idea of what little Tommy looks like when he's all folded. So I'm going to unfold this now and put it on the craft paper we're going to use so you can see what it's like making this from the ground up. Now, since I'm working with scraps that are sitting around in order to reuse them, it's not an exact match on Tommy, but normally you would want to try to make it, you don't want it to be too tiny because then it might be hard to glue together. You don't want it to be too large because then you use up too much potpourri. This is more or less okay, just for our purposes today. Absolute beginner, not too bad. So I'm going to make my first triangle. You can see I have a little white left over, so I'm going to go ahead and trim that off just to make the whole thing a little more exact. There. Alright, let's make our second triangle. And there we go. So the next thing we do, looking at Tommy, and if you're really worried, you can just put him right back on the paper you're using. We're going to make the bottom now. Here's fold one to the center of the cross we just made. Fold two. And you don't want these seams to be, these edges of the paper to be exactly matched because then you'll have nothing to glue. So you want to make like a tiny seam. So I fold over a little bit farther than I have to when I'm making the sides of the envelope, just so I have a place to glue later. And let's make our top flap, which I want to come down a little lower. And you can see with the template in it, this is what it looks like. Sort of the same. Let's remove little Tommy, throw him over there. And now you can see what I'm getting at. I'm going to walk you through gluing this. And I'd like to get that dry glue off there. This is one of my favorite glue products. I'm not sure what brands are available in other parts of the country, but Scotch is pretty universal for the US. This is called Scrapbooker's Glue with Two-Way Applicator. The one up here is a sort of a fine point, almost looks like a marker, and the one down here on the other side is a lot bigger, and it's got this little cushiony thing. That's if you're gluing large amounts and you just want to go whack, whack, whack. If you're doing any precision work, you have the precision tip. There are other brands. There's other forms of glue. I'd stick with scrapbooking glue, or you can even use Elmer's, like they have in the children's school supply aisle. I just like this because I can hold it like a pen and get a lot of control. And if you're a first timer, I imagine that would be pretty easy for you. So you can find these just about anywhere. Oops. And this is invaluable. Even if you're not going to be doing too much crafting, you will find uses for something like this. Okay, so now since I have a top to this, I'm just going to put a T on there so I know which corner is which. I'm going to fold the bottom back up and put some glue on the edge of one of my flaps, the edge that will be touching the bottom. Just go as close to the edge as you can and fold over and press it gently. These things do take a few minutes to set up. It's not as fast as a glue gun, so you might want to, when you're actually doing this, want to schedule in just a few minutes to let it set fully. Okay, and the glue, I believe, washes out. It's photo-safe, permanent, non-toxic, so if you get anything on your hands or your clothes, don't worry, it comes right out. Okay, so here, always replace the cap though, because you don't want it to leak. I find it helpful to sometimes mush down the paper right when I've glued it. It's not too much, because you don't want the glue squirting out, but you want it nice and crisp. And see, already we have a little envelope. So it's sticking pretty well right now. I'm going to go ahead and put some potpourri in. Normally I'd wait a few minutes, but I think we can fudge a few rules. Okay, the potpourri I'm going to use right now is called Elizabeth's Elan, and I happen to love that because I'm Elizabeth. So very carefully open the bag, hold open the envelope, and just tap a little in there. Just a couple teaspoons. I don't want to use too much. And the thing with working with potpourri, even if it's little things like this dried lavender, it will be lumpy. So you're not going to have this perfect machine-looking thing when you're done. It's going to be a little off-kilter because these are dried flowers and herbs. But that's okay. If you look at sachets in stores, unless they are made on an assembly line, they're a little crooked. Okay, so when you filled it up enough, let's close that envelope with some glue. Once more. I'm going to put a little more glue on this edge because it's the top, and it has to cover more paper. Sometimes you have to shake these a bit because there can be air bubbles in the glue. And not just silly here. Okay. Now if you look at mailing envelopes, they look like this. They'll have this little strip of adhesive or glue, and you've just made your own. So you fold it over, press it down a little bit, with lavender, and sometimes you want to just work the envelope a bit until all the corners are stuck. And shake it around so you don't end up with a lump. And voila, you have a little tiny envelope full of delicious lavender roses, or whatever you end up using. Now, to make these a little more fall themed, I have here some stickers, also from the scrapbooking aisle. This brand, I've had it for years. It is Melissa Francis Vintage Labels. This is not the only brand around. They're nice little stickers. You can put them on just about anything. Any craft store is going to have a lot of different varieties of stickers, decals, any manner of goodies you could want. In fact, anymore I have to avoid the scrapbooking aisle lest I overdo on my budget because there's just too much fun stuff. So I selected one. It just says, what's the Great Pumpkin Store. I think it's in focus there. Got some vintage looking pumpkins, and I'm going to put it right on the seam that I just glued together. A little extra insurance. Just like you would put a little sticker on an envelope you're going to mail. And here we are. Just like this one I made as a proof of concept. 2 little sachets. No sewing, no measuring, no silliness. The next one I have is even more scrap oriented. I have here a bit of lace. Let me get this in focus. A little bit of black lace I had laying around and some ribbon. This is absolutely no sew. This doesn't even have glue. If you can tie your shoes, you can make this. All it is a bow. So, where have I put my scrap? There we go. I'll move my glue and scissors aside. And I'm going to bring over a piece of light colored paper because I'm working with something black on a dark table. I want you to see what I'm talking about. Okay, first I have quite literally a scrap of lace from an old project. It's not even fully square. If I was aiming this at people that have done crafts before, I'd walk you through measuring and cutting and all that, but I want this to literally be something you can make with whatever's laying around. So to that end, scrap a funny shape, sort of a trapezoid of lace. And let's get some potpourri. You can lay it out. Select your potpourri. This is Shakespeare's Rose. And it, oh my god, this is divine. It's really, I can't praise Wellcat's potpourris enough. I just discovered them and I adore them. Okay. So I'm going to put some on, oops, I'm going to put it right in the center of the lace. And you can use other fabrics too, as long as it's kind of thin. So cottons, lace, anything like that. Whatever you can smell through, really. I like the lace because it's a pretty look. But you can use, if you're getting rid of an old t-shirt, you can use old t-shirt fabric if you like. Okay, I'm also making sure my Ziploc baggie is fully zipped because I don't want this spilling. Those last little lavender buds in there. Okay, now since this is not quite a square, it's not as exacting as I've done in the past, but the same principle still rules. If you're making a little thing like this, little dumpling like this, corner to corner, that's how you gather these things up and make them look all cute. So one corner to another, and this corner, and that corner. So you're holding your little baggie. I want you to pinch the top off, right at the top of the lump of potpourri. It almost looks like a little clove of garlic or a little onion or something. What I tend to do when I make things like these, just for extra assurance that's not going to pop open, I twist it. So I grab the lump, holding on to the tails here, and I twist it just a little bit. And it also sometimes makes the tops puff out. That's a little more attractive, especially if you're not, if you don't have completely square material to work with. Now, I've cut here a piece of ribbon, which I should have done before. Wrap that around the top. See? Like a little necktie, and tie an overhand knot, just like when you first tie your shoes. I'm doing it one-handed. This takes a little practice at first, but don't worry about all the fancy finger work here. Okay. You spill, just put it back in. Okay, so you've tied it off basically. Now just put a nice bow on it to finish it off. Yep, and there we go. Another little sachet. And now I have 2. They can make friends. So that's it for today. Hopefully, Dana, you find this really interesting, and anyone else out there who's ever wanted to know what to do with potpourri they've been gifted, other than stick it in a bowl. So have a good day, everyone, and happy crafting.